Captain Ji-Won Park stood on the bridge of the Terran vessel Harmony's Edge, watching 3 alien ships approach through the darkness of space. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat faster than usual. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries, first contact with an alien species. Distance to alien vessels, she asked her crew. 200,000 kilometers in closing, Captain, replied Ensign Sora Yoon from her position at the sensor station. The young officer's voice carried excitement mixed with nervousness. Dr. Min-Ho Kim moved to stand beside the captain. The xenobiologist had spent years preparing for this moment, learning every theory about alien communication. Their ships are beautiful, he said, studying the sleek vessels on the main screen. Look at those curves. Their technology seems very advanced. Commander Hee-Soo Lee frowned as she watched the tactical display. Something bothered her about the alien formation, but she could not quite identify what. Captain, they're positioning themselves in a triangle around us. Standard diplomatic formation, Ambassador Taewon Choi said from his seat near the communication station. Many Earth cultures use similar approaches for formal meetings. It shows they want to talk, not fight. Captain Park nodded, but kept Commander Lee's observation in mind. Her first officer had good instincts about military matters. Open a channel, Specialist Nam. Specialist Doyen Nam worked quickly at his station. Channel open, Captain, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Captain Ji-Won Park of the Earth vessel Harmony's Edge. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and friendship between our peoples. The response came quickly. The main screen filled with the image of a tall reptilian being. Its scales were deep green with gold patterns, and its large eyes held intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was deep and measured. Greetings, humans of Earth. I am High Consul Vethak of the Velak Confederation. We have traveled far to meet you. Your species has grown quickly among the stars. Dr. Kim stepped forward, his translation device working to convert the alien words. The language structure is complex but logical. I think I can establish better communication protocols within a few hours. High Consul Vethak seemed pleased by this. Your Dr. Kim shows wisdom. We appreciate those who seek understanding. Perhaps we might meet in person, your vessel or ours. Ambassador Choi stood up. We would be honored to host you aboard Harmony's Edge, High Consul. Our medical bay has prepared a suitable atmosphere for your species. How did you know our atmospheric needs? Vethak asked, tilting his head in what might have been curiosity. We've been monitoring your ship's emissions, Dr. Kim explained. Basic scientific analysis. We wanted to ensure comfortable conditions for our meeting. Vethak made a sound that could have been laughter. Clever. We also have studied your species from a distance. Humans are most interesting. Captain Park felt a small chill at the way Vethak said interesting, but dismissed it as cultural difference. We're honored by your attention, High Consul. When would you like to meet? In 2 of your hours. That gives your Dr. Kim time to improve our communication. Agreed. We'll prepare quarters and refreshments. The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent for a moment. Ambassador Choi was the first to speak. That went better than our best-case scenarios. They seemed genuinely friendly. Dr. Kim was already working at his station, analyzing the recorded conversation. Their language has interesting patterns, very precise, almost mathematical in structure. It suggests a highly organized society. Commander Lee studied the tactical display again. Captain, I'm still concerned about their positioning. It's not just diplomatic, it's strategic. They have us surrounded. Maybe that's just their way, Captain Park said, though she made a mental note to keep weapons on standby. Ambassador, what's your read on High Consul Vethak? Professional, intelligent, curious about humanity. His body language suggests confidence, maybe even superiority, but that could be cultural. Many species might feel that way meeting a younger civilization. Ensign Yoon looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting more ships at the edge of sensor range, at least 6 more Velak vessels. A full diplomatic escort, Ambassador Choi said quickly. It shows they take this meeting seriously. Commander Lee's frown deepened. Or it shows they're being very careful. 9 ships for one first contact meeting seems excessive. Captain Park walked to the center of the bridge. We proceed as planned, but stay alert. Ensign Yoon, keep monitoring those distant ships. Commander Lee, have security prepare for our guests, but keep it discreet. We want to appear welcoming, not suspicious. Yes, Captain, both officers replied. Dr. Kim continued working on his translation algorithms. The next 2 hours passed quickly as the crew prepared for the historic meeting. The medical bay was adjusted for Valak physiology, the conference room was set up with appropriate seating, and the kitchen staff prepared foods that should be safe for reptilian digestion. Captain Park changed into her dress uniform, complete, with the medals from her years of service. Ambassador Choi reviewed his diplomatic protocols one more time. Dr. Kim finished his translation improvements and ran several test scenarios. All stations report ready, Captain, Commander Lee announced. The Valak shuttle is approaching our docking bay, Specialist Nam added. Captain Park straightened her uniform jacket. This is it, people. We're about to make history. Remember, we represent all of humanity in this moment. Let's make a good impression. The crew took their positions as the alien shuttle docked with their ship. Security teams stood ready but kept their weapons lowered. Medical staff waited nearby in case of any problems. Ambassador Choi and Dr. Kim flanked Captain Park as they walked toward the docking bay. The airlock cycled open, and High Consul Vethak stepped through, followed by 2 other Velak. They were tall, elegant beings with smooth movements and sharp intelligence in their eyes. Their clothing was simple but well-made, with subtle patterns that probably indicated rank or position. High Consul Vethak, Captain Park said, offering a slight bow. Welcome aboard Harmony's Edge. Captain Park, Vethak replied, returning the bow. The honor is ours. Your vessel is smaller than expected, but efficient in design. Dr. Kim's translation device worked smoothly now, converting speech in both directions with only slight delays. We believe in practical design over size, Dr. Kim said. Our ship serves its purpose well. Indeed, we are eager to learn more about human purposes. As they walked toward the conference room, Captain Park noticed how carefully the Valak guests observed everything around them. They seemed particularly interested in the security stations and weapon storage areas, though they tried to appear casual about it. The meeting was about to begin, and with it, humanity's future among the stars would be decided. The conference room aboard Harmony's Edge was filled with tension, though Captain Jiwon Park tried to keep the atmosphere friendly. High Consul Vethek sat across from her at the polished metal table, his large reptilian eyes studying the humans, carefully. His 2 companions remained silent, but their gaze moved constantly around the room. Your star charts are fascinating, Dr. Minho Kim said, examining the holographic display the Valak had shared. This trade route network spans incredible distances. The Valak Confederation has existed for many centuries, Vethak replied smoothly. We have learned much about efficient travel between worlds. Ambassador Taewon Choi leaned forward with interest. How many species belong to your confederation? 17 different peoples serve under Valak guidance, Vethek said. The way he said serve made Captain Park notice something odd in his tone, but she could not identify exactly what bothered her. Specialist Doyun Nam sat at his communication station nearby, monitoring the meeting and maintaining contact with the Valak ships. His earpiece suddenly crackled with static, then strange sounds that did not match the conversation in the room. Nam frowned and adjusted his equipment. More alien voices came through his headset, Valak voices speaking in rapid, excited tones. These were not the calm, diplomatic words they heard from Vethak. Dr. Kim, Nam said quietly. I'm picking up other Valak transmissions. Can your translation system handle multiple channels? Dr. Kim connected his device to Nam's station without interrupting the main conversation. His eyes widened as the translation began appearing on his screen. The specimens look healthy and strong. Protein content appears excellent. Much better than the Terran species we harvested last cycle. Dr. Kim's face went pale. He showed his screen to Captain Park, who read the translated words with growing horror. These were not diplomatic communications. They were discussing humans like livestock. Meanwhile, Vethak continued his pleasant conversation. We would very much like to visit your Earth. The agricultural techniques you described sound fascinating. Our people are always interested in new sources of nutrition. Earth's farming methods have fed billions, Ambassador Choi said proudly. We've learned to use every bit of available land efficiently. Billions, you say? Vethak's eyes gleamed. How fascinating, and all concentrated on one world, Commander. Hisu Lee had been watching the tactical display from her position near the wall. The distant Valak ships had moved closer during the meeting, and their formations looked less diplomatic by the minute. Captain Park made a decision. She stood up, slowly, her hand resting near her sidearm. High Consul Vethak, we've been monitoring your fleet communications. Vethak's friendly expression did not change, but his companions tensed. Oh? I hope our technical discussions have not interfered with your systems. Protein content and harvesting cycles are interesting technical terms, Dr. Kim said, his voice steady despite his fear. The conference room fell silent. Vethak looked at each human in turn, then made a sound that might have been a sigh. When he spoke again, his voice had changed completely. The friendly diplomatic tone was gone, replaced by cold authority. You are more clever than most species we encounter. Usually the negotiation proceed much more smoothly. Negotiations? Ambassador Choi asked, though he was beginning to understand the truth. The Valak Confederation does not make alliances, Vethak said, standing to his full impressive height. We acquire resources. For centuries we have guided lesser species toward their proper purpose, serving Valak needs. Captain Park felt ice in her veins. And what purpose do you see for humanity? Humans show excellent potential, strong bodies, quick minds, and most importantly, you reproduce rapidly. The Terran species we currently harvest has become insufficient. Too slow to breed. Not enough nutrition per unit. Dr. Kim's hand shook as he operated his translation device. You're talking about eating us. Among other uses, Vethak replied casually. The stronger specimens make excellent workers. The younger ones provide better nutrition. It is all very efficient. Ensign Sora Yoon's voice came through the communication system from the bridge. Captain, the Valak ships are powering weapons and moving to surround us completely. Vethak smiled, showing sharp teeth. Your vessel is well designed for a primitive species, but you are greatly outnumbered. Surrender now, and we will ensure your deaths are quick. Resist, and we will take what we need anyway. Ambassador Choi stood up, his diplomatic training taking over even in this nightmare situation. The United Earth government will never surrender our people to be harvested like animals. The United Earth government will not have a choice, Vethak said. We have done this many times before. First, we eliminate the military leadership. Then we establish breeding facilities and work camps. Within a generation, humans will forget they were ever free. Commander Lee activated her communicator. Bridge, this is Lee. Activate emergency protocols. All hands to battle stations. Too late, Vethak said. My ships are already in position. Your little diplomatic vessel cannot escape or fight. Captain Park drew her sidearm and pointed it at Vethak. Maybe not, but we can make sure you don't. Live to see it. Vethak laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. Kill me if you wish. 10,000 more Valak commanders stand ready to complete this harvest. Your species is just another resource to be managed. The lights in the conference room flickered as Harmony's edge shook under weapons fire. Alarms began sounding throughout. The ship as the Valak attack began. Captain, Ensign Yoon's voice came through the speakers filled with panic. Multiple hits on our hull. Shields down to 60%. They're targeting our engines and weapons. Vethak's companions moved toward the humans, but Captain Park kept her weapon trained on their leader. How many species have you destroyed this way? Destroyed? We improved them. The Kajak were violent and chaotic before we guided them. Now, they serve efficiently in our mining operations. The Terran wasted their intelligence on art and philosophy. Now they provide sustenance for their betters. Dr. Kim was still monitoring communications from the Valek fleet. His translation device showed new messages that made his blood run cold. Prepare harvesting equipment. Set course for the third planet, their homeworld. Begin calculating optimal breeding ratios. The ship shook again, harder this time. Emergency lighting came on as main power fluctuated. Your resistance is pointless, Vethek said calmly. Surrender your navigation data for Earth, and we will ensure some of your species survives in our facilities. Captain Park's finger tightened on the trigger of her weapon. Never. Then you have chosen the difficult path. Very well. My ships will take what they need from your computer systems once your vessel is disabled. Commander Lee's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through hyperspace. Vethek frowned for the first time since dropping his diplomatic mask. What approaching vessels? Captain Park smiled grimly, despite the desperate situation. High Consul, I think it's time you learned something important about humanity. What? We're not as primitive as you think. The Harmony's edge shuddered under another barrage of Valak weapons fire. Emergency alarms screamed through the corridors as the ship's hull groaned under the assault. Captain Ji-won Park struggled to maintain her footing in the conference room, while keeping her weapon trained on High Consul Vethak. Captain! Ensign Sorayun's voice crackled through the communication system. Hull breach on Deck 7. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely. Lieutenant Dongha Shin's voice joined from the tactical station. Weapon systems are offline. The Valak ships have been targeting our defensive capabilities specifically. Vethak smiled coldly at the reports of damage. Your vessel was not designed for combat. This will end quickly. Commander Haisu Lee grabbed a wall support as another blast rocked the ship. Captain, we need to get to the bridge. This diplomatic meeting is over. Indeed it is, Vethek agreed. His two companions moved closer to the humans, their clawed hands ready for violence. Captain Park backed toward the door, still covering the Valak with her sidearm. Ambassador Choi, Dr. Kim, move to the bridge. Commander Lee, escort them. I'm not leaving you alone with these things, Lee protested. That's an order, Commander. As the humans moved toward the exit, Specialist Doyen Nam's voice came through, the speakers with urgency. Captain, I'm still monitoring Valak fleet communications. They're discussing something about gravitational anomalies at the system edge. Dr. Minho Kim paused at the doorway, his translation device still active. The Valak fleet commander sounds confused. He's asking about unidentified contacts approaching from hyperspace. Vethak's confident expression flickered with uncertainty. What contacts? No other species operates in this region. Captain Park smiled grimly. Like I said, High Consul, you don't know as much about humanity as you think. The ship's lights failed completely for several seconds before emergency power kicked in. Chief Engineer Sunwoo Kang's voice echoed through the corridors. All hands, this is engineering. Main power is down. I'm rerouting through backup systems, but we're running on borrowed time. Captain, Ensign Yoon called from the bridge. The gravitational distortions are getting stronger. Whatever's coming, it's big. Really big. Vethak activated a communication device on his wrist and spoke rapidly in the Valak language. Dr. Kim's translator caught fragments. Status report. Approaching vessels. Identification unknown. The response from the Valak fleet commander was filled with what sounded like panic. Even without perfect translation, the tone was clear. Something had surprised them. Captain Park, Commander Lee's voice came through her personal communicator. I'm on the bridge now. You need to see what's on the sensors. On my way, Park, replied, then addressed Vethak. Your people sound worried, High Consul. Impossible. No species in this region has technology that could threaten Valak vessels. Captain Park began backing out of the conference room. Maybe you haven't been watching us as carefully as you thought. Vethak and his companions followed, but they seemed less confident now. The Valak leader was listening to increasingly frantic reports from his fleet through his communication device. The journey to the bridge felt like an eternity as the ship continued taking damage. Emergency teams ran through the corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting power. The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite the chaos. They had trained for combat situations, even though this was supposed to be a peaceful diplomatic mission. Captain Park reached the bridge to find her officers working frantically at their stations. The main screen showed the tactical situation. 3 Valak ships had the Harmony's Edge surrounded and were pounding it with energy weapons. "Report," Park ordered as she took her command chair. "Hull integrity down to 40%, Lieutenant Shin announced. Weapons offline, shields failing, and life support is running on emergency power." "The good news," Commander Lee added with grim satisfaction, "is that our friends out there are about to have a very bad day." "Show me," Park ordered. The main screen changed to display the edge of the star system. Space itself seemed to be tearing open as massive gravitational distortions created visible ripples in the darkness. "Contact emerging from hyperspace," Ensign Yoon reported. "It's a massive, Captain. Larger than anything in our databases." Vethik pushed onto the bridge, his diplomatic immunity forgotten in the chaos. "What is that?" "That," Captain Park said, with growing satisfaction, "is why Earth doesn't send diplomatic missions alone." The tear in space grew wider, and something emerged that made everyone on the bridge, human and Velak alike, stare in shock. A ship came through the hyperspace rift that dwarfed everything else in the system. It was easily 5 times the size of the largest Velak vessel, its hull dark gray with running lights that spelled out its name and designation. "TDF Iron Will," Dr. Kim read from the tactical display. "Terran Defense Force Dreadnought." But the massive warship was not alone. Behind it came destroyer after destroyer, sleek and deadly vessels that moved with predatory grace. Cruisers followed, their hulls bristling with weapon systems. Then came the carriers, launching clouds of fighters that swarmed around the fleet. Like angry insects, full fleet composition, Ensign Yoon reported in an awed voice. 1 dreadnought, 12 destroyers, 8 heavy cruisers, 4 carriers, and I count over 200 fighter craft. Vethak stared at the display in disbelief. "Impossible. Our intelligence reported humans have no significant military capability." "Your intelligence was wrong," Captain Park said simply. The Valak fleet, which had seemed overwhelming moments before, now looked pathetically small compared to the human armada. The 3 ships attacking Harmony's Edge immediately stopped firing and began transmitting what sounded like urgent requests for orders. "Incoming transmission from the Iron Will," Specialist Nam announced. "Put it through," Park ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a stern-faced human in a military uniform. His insignia marked him as an admiral, and his expression suggested he was not pleased with the current situation. "This is Admiral Gaeonho Yang of the Terran Defense Force. Harmony's Edge, report your status." "Admiral, this is Captain Park. We're heavily damaged but operational. The Valak delegation has revealed hostile intentions. They're slavers, sir. They intend to harvest Earth's population." Admiral Yang's expression hardened. "Understood, Captain. Are you in immediate danger?" Vethak suddenly activated his wrist communicator and began shouting orders in the Valak language. Dr. Kim's translation device picked up commands to retreat and escape the system immediately. "The Valak are attempting to withdraw," Captain Park reported. "Negative," Admiral Yang replied calmly. "No hostile vessels will leave this system. All Valak ships will power down weapons and surrender immediately or be destroyed." Through the viewports, the human fleet was spreading out with military precision. The smaller ships moved to surround the Valak vessels while the dreadnought positioned itself like a predator about to strike. Vethak's confident mask had completely slipped away. He looked at Captain Park with something approaching fear. "You planned this. This was a trap." "No," Park replied honestly. "We came here hoping for peace, but we're not stupid enough to come unprepared for war." The Valak ships began trying to escape, but they quickly discovered that human vessels had anticipated their movements. Every escape route was blocked by destroyers or cruisers that moved with deadly efficiency. "This is your final warning, Admiral." Yang's voice echoed across all communication channels. "Surrender immediately or face the consequences." The space around the damaged Harmony's edge transformed into a display of human military might that left High Consul Vethak speechless. The Terran Defense Force fleet moved with precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. Velak, vessels, this is Admiral Gaeanho Yang. The voice echoed across all communication frequencies. You have 30 seconds to power down all weapons and surrender, or my fleet will open fire. Captain Jiwon Park watched the tactical display as the human ships took positions around the Velak fleet. The 3 vessels that had been attacking her ship suddenly seemed tiny and vulnerable compared to the massive human dreadnought Iron Will. Admiral, Park transmitted. High Consul Vethak is aboard my vessel. The Velak have admitted to enslaving 17 different species. They intended to do the same to humanity. Understood, Captain Park. Are you able to maintain custody of the High Consul? Park looked at Vethak, who stood frozen on her bridge. The reptilian alien's confident demeanor had completely disappeared. Affirmative, Admiral. He's not going anywhere. Commander Hee-Su Lee moved to stand beside Vethak while Lieutenant Dong Ha-shin kept his hand on his sidearm. The Velak leader seemed unable to comprehend what he was seeing on the main screen. This is impossible, Vethak muttered. Our intelligence report said humans were a young species with primitive technology. Dr. Minho Kim looked up from his translation station. Maybe your intelligence was designed to tell you what you wanted to hear. On the tactical display, the Velak ships were trying desperately to escape. Their sleek vessels, which had seemed so advanced an hour ago, were being herded like sheep by the human fleet. Every time a Velak ship tried to break away, 2 or 3 human destroyers would intercept it. Velak Fleet Commander. Admiral Yang's voice carried absolute authority. You now have 15 seconds to comply. Specialist Doyun Nam monitored the Velak communications as panic spread through their fleet. Captain, they're requesting permission to withdraw. Their fleet commander is asking Vethak for orders. Vethak activated his wrist communicator with shaking hands. When he spoke, his voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. All vessels, this is High Consul Vethak. Attempt emergency jump to hyperspace immediately. Do not engage the human fleet. Too late for that, Commander Lee said grimly. On the main screen, the human fleet's movements suddenly became more aggressive. The dreadnought Iron Will turned, its massive bulk toward the largest Velak ship, and weapon systems across the human fleet began powering up. Time's up, Admiral Yang announced. Captain Minji-Bei, you may fire when ready. The dreadnought's main guns spoke with a voice like thunder. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space and struck the Velak flagship. But instead of destroying the ship, the weapons fire was precisely targeted. The alien vessel's engines exploded in controlled bursts, leaving the ship disabled, but intact. Precision shots only, Admiral Yang commanded the fleet. We want prisoners and intelligence, not debris. The human destroyers moved in perfect coordination. Each Velak ship found itself targeted by multiple human vessels, and the results were devastating but controlled. Engine sections were destroyed, weapon systems were neutralized, and bridge sections were hit with what appeared to be some kind of stunning energy that left the ships dark and powerless. The entire engagement lasted less than 8 minutes. Velak vessels disabled, Admiral, came the report from Captain Bei aboard the Iron Will. No enemy casualties, but all ships are completely neutralized. Vethak slumped against a wall support on the bridge of Harmony's edge. How? How did you defeat our fleet so easily? Captain Park studied the alien with a mixture of disgust and pity. You made the same mistake that bullies always make, High Consul. You assumed that because you'd been picking on weaker opponents, you were actually strong. Ensign Sora Yoon looked up from her sensor station. Captain, I'm detecting human marines boarding the disabled Velak ships. Standard procedure, Commander Lee explained to the confused Velak. Secure the vessels, treat the wounded, and take prisoners for questioning. Admiral Yang's face appeared on the main screen again. Captain Park, prepare to receive a medical team and damage control specialists. How many Velak are aboard your vessel? 3, Admiral. High Consul Vethak and 2 companions. Secure them in your brig. Fleet Admiral Wonshik Lim will want to question them personally. Dr. Kim looked up from his station with interest. Fleet Admiral Lim is coming here. The Sovereign is 2 hours behind us, Admiral Yang explained. When Earth Command received your first contact report, they decided this situation required the highest level of attention. Ferthik finally found his voice again. You planned this from the beginning. This was an ambush. Captain Park shook her head. No, High Consul. We genuinely hoped for peaceful contact. But we're not naive. The 23rd Expeditionary Fleet has been following our diplomatic mission since we left Earth space just in case. Just in case what? Just in case we encountered something like you, Commander Lee said bluntly. Admiral Yang's expression softened slightly as he addressed Captain Park. Your crew performed excellently under impossible circumstances, Captain. The intelligence you gathered about Valak intentions and capabilities will be invaluable. Thank you, Admiral. What are your orders regarding the prisoners? Transfer them to the Iron Will once our medical team has cleared your injured crew. We'll begin interrogation. Immediately, Dr. Kim raised his hand. Admiral, based on my translation of their communications, the Valak have enslaved multiple species across dozens of star systems. This might be bigger than we thought. Admiral Yang nodded grimly. That's exactly what Fleet Admiral Lim is afraid of. Captain Park, you and your crew have just discovered that humanity is not alone in the galaxy, and that we may have accidentally declared war on a galactic empire. Vathak laughed bitterly. You have no idea what you've done. The Valak Confederation spans hundreds of worlds. We have thousands of ships, millions of warriors. This small fleet means nothing. Maybe, Admiral Yang replied calmly. But I have a feeling your thousands of ships have the same weakness your fleet just demonstrated. What weakness? Captain Park smiled as she watched human Marines beginning to dock with the disabled Valak vessels. You've spent so long bullying species that couldn't fight back, you forgot how to fight an equal opponent. We are not equal, Vathak snarled. The Valak are superior to all other species. Then why are you my prisoner and your fleet is disabled? Park asked simply. Vathak had no answer for that. Admiral Yang's voice cut through the silence. Captain Park, once your ship is repaired, you'll escort the Valak prisoners back to Earth. Your diplomatic mission has become a military intelligence priority. Understood, Admiral. What about the rest of the Valak Confederation? That's a decision for Earth Command and the civilian government. But speaking personally, Admiral Yang paused, looking at the tactical display showing the captured Valak fleet. I don't think we can ignore the existence of 17 enslaved species. Dr. Kim looked up from his translation work with excitement. Admiral, if we could make contact with those enslaved species, they might become allies instead of enemies. Exactly what Fleet Admiral Lim is thinking, Doctor. This first contact may have just changed the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. Captain Park looked at High Consul Vathak, who sat in stunned silence. The alien who had entered her ship as a confident predator was now a defeated prisoner, and his entire worldview had been shattered in less than a day. High Consul, she said quietly, welcome to the new reality. 3 hours after the brief battle, the bridge of Harmony's Edge bustled with repair teams and military personnel. Captain Jiwon Park stood watching the efficient work of human Marines as they transferred the last Valak prisoners to the dreadnought, Iron Will. Captain, Dr. Minho Kim called from his station. I've finished analyzing the complete Valak communication records. You need to see this. Park walked over to Kim's workstation, where streams of translated text filled multiple screens. The content made her stomach turn. 17 enslaved species across 43 star systems, Kim summarized. The Valak have been operating their livestock empire for over 3 centuries. They rotate between species as food sources, industrial, workers, and breeding stock. Commander Haisu Lee joined them, reading over the translations. These population numbers, they're talking about billions of sentient beings in slavery. It gets worse, Kim continued. They have detailed files on 12 additional species they're planning to acquire in the next 50 years. Humanity was just the latest target. Ensign Sora Yoon looked up from her sensor station. Captain, Fleet Admiral Lim's flagship is dropping out of hyperspace. The main screen showed another massive Terran vessel emerging from the swirling portal of a hyperspace jump. The Sovereign was even larger than the Iron Will, its hull marked with the insignia of the Terran Defense Force's highest command. "Incoming transmission from the Sovereign," Specialist Doyen Nam announced. "Put it through," Park ordered. A stern-faced woman in Admiral's uniform appeared on the screen. Her gray hair and weathered features spoke of decades of military service, and her eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who had fought in the border wars against the Centauri rebels. "Captain Park, I'm Fleet Admiral Wanchik Lim. Your crew's performance during this first contact situation has been exemplary. Thank you, Admiral. Dr. Kim has compiled intelligence from the Velak communications that you need to see immediately. I'm aware of the preliminary reports. Dr. Youngji Han, my chief xenopsychologist, is standing by to begin detailed interrogation of the Velak prisoners. But first, I need your assessment of their military capabilities." Commander Lee stepped forward. "Admiral, based on what we observed, the Velak rely heavily on intimidation and technological superiority over primitive opponents. Their tactics are outdated, their formations are predictable, and they have no experience fighting an equal adversary. Elaborate. They surrounded us with 3 ships and attacked in sequence rather than coordinating their fire. When our fleet arrived, they panicked and tried to scatter instead of fighting as a unit. Their weapons are powerful, but their strategy is that of bullies who've never faced real resistance." Fleet Admiral Lim nodded thoughtfully. "That matches our tactical analysis of the engagement. General Kyungjin Oh has been reviewing the battle recordings." A new face appeared on screen beside the Admiral, a man in Army uniform with the insignia of military intelligence. "Captain Park, the Velak made several critical errors that suggest their entire military doctrine is based on fighting inferior opponents." "Such as?" Park asked. "They positioned their ships to prevent escape rather than maximize firepower. They targeted your engines and weapons instead of going for a killing blow. Most importantly, they brought exactly the minimum force they thought necessary. 3 ships against 1. Dr. Kim looked up from his translations. "General, according to these records, the Velak follow the same pattern with every species they encounter. A small diplomatic contact followed by a quick strike to capture key individuals, then demands for surrender backed by threats of orbital bombardment. Classic asymmetric warfare against defenseless opponents," General O agreed. "It works perfectly, until you meet someone who can fight back." Fleet Admiral Lim's expression grew grim. "Which brings us to the central question. What do we do now? Earth Command has asked me to present options to the civilian government." Captain Park felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Her peaceful diplomatic mission had uncovered a galactic atrocity that demanded response, but the scale was overwhelming. "Admiral," she said carefully, "we have a moral obligation to those enslaved species. But do we have the military capability to challenge an empire spanning hundreds of worlds? That's exactly what I'm here to determine. Dr. Han, what's your initial assessment of Velak psychology?" Dr. Youngji Han appeared on screen, looking up from a tablet filled with notes. "Fascinating and disturbing, Admiral. High Consul Vethak shows classic signs of a predator species that has become complacent through centuries of easy victories. His shock at human capabilities suggests the Velak genuinely believe they are naturally superior to all other life. Meaning, they've built their entire society around that assumption. Their military, their economy, their social structure, everything depends on maintaining dominance over inferior species. They literally cannot comprehend the possibility of losing." Commander Lee crossed her arms. "That could be an advantage for us. If they can't adapt to facing an equal opponent, their response to human expansion might be predictably flawed." General O nodded agreement. "The intelligence Captain Park's team gathered shows the Velak have massive numbers but outdated tactics. Their ships are advanced but designed for intimidation rather than ship-to-ship combat. Most importantly, they've never had to fight a war, just a series of one-sided conquests." Fleet Admiral Lim was quiet for a long moment, studying reports on her own screens. Finally, she spoke. "Dr. Kim, in your analysis of Velak communications, Did you find any evidence that the enslaved species maintain organized resistance? Yes, Admiral. Several references to compliance issues and worker rebellions that require military suppression. The Kajak species in particular seems to cause ongoing problems for Velak administrators. So they're not broken. They're just waiting for hope. Captain Park understood where the Admiral's thinking was leading. You're considering military intervention. I'm considering the unthinkable, Lim replied. A liberation campaign across multiple star systems against a numerically superior enemy. But the preliminary tactical analysis suggests it might actually be possible. How? Ensign Yoon asked, then blushed at speaking out of turn. Fleet Admiral Lim smiled at the young officer. Good question, Ensign. General O? The Velak Empire is large but fragile, O explained. It depends on each enslaved species believing resistance is hopeless. If we can demonstrate that the Velak can be defeated, their entire control structure might collapse from within. We wouldn't need to conquer hundreds of worlds, Commander Lee realized. We'd need to win a few key battles and let the enslaved species do the rest. Dr. Han nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Show the galaxy that the Velak are not invincible, and their empire becomes vulnerable to revolution. Fleet Admiral Lim stood up on her bridge. Captain Park, you and your crew have done more than make first contact. You've uncovered a situation that could define humanity's role in the galaxy for centuries to come. What are your recommendations to Earth Command, Admiral? That we cannot ignore 17 enslaved species, that we cannot allow the Velak to add humanity to their collection, and that we may have the capability to do something about both problems. Dr. Kim looked up from his continuing analysis of Velak data. Admiral, there's something else you should know. According to these records, the Velak have been planning to move against 3 more species within the next year. If we don't act, millions more sentient beings will be enslaved. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. So we have a choice, Captain Park said quietly. We can withdraw from this region of space and hope the Velak leave us alone, or we can accept responsibility for changing the balance of power in the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Lim's expression hardened with resolve. Captain, humanity didn't seek this fight, but we're not going to run from it either. I'm recommending to Earth Command that we begin immediate fleet mobilization. For what purpose, Admiral? To liberate a galaxy, Captain Park, 1 star system at a time. As Captain Park looked at the tactical display showing the captured Velak fleet and the growing human armada, she realized that humanity's age of expansion had become something far greater, the age of human justice among the stars. Dr. Kim's final translation from the Velak records appeared on his screen. The harvest of Earth will mark our greatest triumph. Instead, Captain Park thought, it had marked the beginning of the Velak Confederation's end. The peaceful first contact had become humanity's declaration of war against tyranny itself.